Yan, record ko na siya. Ang cute mo ngayon, Sir Adam. Lagi akong cute, Ibes. Huwag kang mag-alala. Normal
Ay,
to.
wow.
Huwag kang Aegean. Ano to eh, normal ko to eh.
Oo naman.
Diba? Anyway, so guys, welcome back again to our last part of the session for today's topic for composition. So I welcome you all back and let us continue. So for the next composition tip that we have, check ko lang first yung mga attendees, no? Dito yung mga people na really interested to learn, and perspectives have now been changing because of, their eyes have been opened now for the beauty of the world's um, you know, lines and all, and the basic tips for composition. So next we have here this image. So this image I took, wala akong maisip nung time na to. Sabi ko, taka na, butasan na natin yung newspaper na yan at sumilip ka na lang kunwari. Gusto ko lang magkaroon ng photo na may pasilip din. Right? So this is what we call framing. So in framing, of course, it refers to using elements from a scene to create a frame within your frame. So I've seen photos in the chat, no, na nagsisend. And doon sa mga photos na yon, nakita ko na may mga framing doon. So, on how to create a frame within the frame, Adam. So, let me help you. So, in this frame, ito, tingnan niyo yung mouse ko ha. Ito yung frame natin, right? Ito yung frame natin. Let me draw an annotation para makita niyo yung lahat, right? So, ito yung frame natin, yung buo yan. Ito yung buong frame natin, right? So, alin dyan yung frame within your frame? This is another frame right here. Itong butas
newspaper.
Yung ginawa ko sa newspaper, right? So this is the frame within the frame. So ginawan ko siya ng frame, of course, right? So i-clear ko lang siya ulit, clear all drawings. So eto siya. Yan yung frame ko, right? So basic lang to, hindi ko na siya kailangan pa i-complicate kasi makikita nyo to agad-agad na framing pala, ganito lang, kailangan nasa loob lang siya na isang frame within the frame of my photo. So kagaya nito sa isang model ko, si Denise, a photo I took way back in 2017 na sa SM North. So kung familiar ka sa SM North, may parang may mga doon sa labas sa garden, may mga kung ano-ano doon. So doon yun siya, kinuha ko. So frame ko siya within the bars of this whatever na nandoon yung nasa playground. So this is actually also a good composition for you to apply kasi it adds drama to your photos. Pwede nyo i-frame within a newspaper, within a frame na literal na frame, or sa mga sing-sing, i-pass nyo yung mga subject nyo doon, yung mga ganyan, right? So, ayun. This one naman, si Blanche. Can anyone tell me, alin yung frame ko dito? Within my frame.
Yung bintana po ng
kotse.
Bintana ng kotse? Alright. So this one, no, itong bintana ng kotse. So, frame ko siya dyan sa sasakyan nila. Sabi ko, sige, pasok ka, upo ka, picturean kita nila. So, you have to be, kumaga, kagaya ng pinag-usapan natin when we start off composition, di ba? It has to have planning din. Hindi lang basta shoot in producing photos and all. But it also requires planning. Kumaga, titignan mo on how you will shoot the photo. Para ang nasa mind mo din dapat, alam ko dapat yung end result, ganito siya. Naka-frame siya dito, ganyan. So, whenever you shoot, whenever you are in a shooting, like whenever you are shooting, you will be flooded with thoughts and composition na nasa isip nyo na ay ganito pala ang gagawin ko, ay ganito pala. So keep doing that para when it comes to your editing and your post processing, makikita nyo ano yung mga pwede nyong i-apply sa inyong photo. Sa yun, pwede nyong i-produce pala. Sorry. Right? So thank you, no? So next, ayan. So dito, alin sa tingin nyo dito yung framing? Framing ko sabi kasi medyo tricky to, Adam, ha? Wala kasi yung sinasabi mo na iloloob mo siya sa frame, eh. Pero, let's see.
Yung trees tsaka yung trees tsaka yung grass.
Mga puno tsaka halaman.
Ha? Yung puno at halaman sa baba. Okay. Eto, no, as you can see sa background niya, i-annotate ko para visible sa mga kinesthetic. So, as you can see, This one right here. Nakikita nyo yan? Yan. That's the frame. Frame ko siya doon sa mga sa backdrop ko ng mga puno, right? So it's framing within the frame. All right, thank you so much. So next. Yan, alin yung frame dito? This is also from Shadow Dreams project, no?
Yung dalawang couple.
Opo. Yung couple po.
Yung couple yung frame natin. Ano yung main subject natin?
Mountain.
Yung view po.
Yung view, which is ano ito?
Taal ata.
Taal. This is in Taal, no? Tagaytay. Medyo sorry lang for the low quality photo. Sinave ko lang to ulit. So, ganda, no? I like the view. Okay. So, sasabihin dyan ni Char. So, ni Ed, tsaka yung ni, ayan na nga. Sabi ko na nga, be. Because, you like the view because you're my best view. Ni. Anyway, cut it out.
Wow.
This is Taal and this is the frame. So, guys, pwede nyo itong i-apply talaga. Do not limit yourself to what you just know. Later, pag-uusapan pa natin yung mga limitations and what we can do to express ourselves in being more creative to produce creative content. Right? Sige. Alam ko naman everyone is, aiming for a good content in their photos, in your self-portraits, mga ganun. So, this is, again, a perfect avenue for us to learn. Right? Next is, yan. So in this image, can anyone tell me alin yung nakita nyo? Alin or sino? Kung kilala nyo ba yan? Alin, sino, or ano nakikita nyo sa image na to? So sa chat from Winsel.
Po.
Si Livy? No, it's not Livy.
Yung bundok.
Bundok? Paano na yung bundok dyan?
Yung half face po ng model.
Half face ng
Na-emphasize
model.
ko.
Kamay. Ano pa? Mukha, mata, ilong, bibig, right? So, wala
Yung
na.
bone.
Na-distract ba kayo sa photo sa background niya? Hindi.
Nope.
Nope, no? I'm using dito 50mm f1.4 lens. I took this shot around I think 4 p.m. 4 p.m. And sorry, naglag pala sa akin. Nasa bundok pa rin. Kaya pala nasa bundok pa rin si Sir JM. Sir JM, nakababa na po kami ng bundok. Pwede na po kayong sumunod. So dito, it's also one of the composition tips na i-apply natin na parang siguro marami kayong nakikita nito na parang puro mukha lang right? This is what we call filling the frame. So we fill the frame with our subject. So ibig sabihin lang yan, any volunteer na lang to read na lang so that we can define what fill the frame is.
Hello po.
Okay, go ahead, read. State your name and read.
Dominica po, when you fill the frame with your subject, you fill the photograph with the subject. So you are making a clear statement of what is most important in the photo. As it takes up most, if not all, of the image the viewer is immediately drawn to your subject.
Yan, thank you. No? As the definition may be complicated na iisipin natin but to uncomplicate things, always remember na you just have to fill the frame with your subject para you are making a statement of what's the most important in the photo. Ano yung most important in the photo? Of course, yung model ko na tinakpan niya yung kabilang mata niya ng kanyang kamay. So, hindi mo na kailangan pang mag-explain sa mga tao na kung ano yung gusto mong i-point out. But you're already making a statement of your story, of your image, of your photo, na this is the most important element in my photo. Yung model ko. Specifically yung eyes niya, yung ilong niya, yung mukha niya, or everything what features in that photo. Right? So clear ba yun sa inyo?
Yes po.
Right? So,
Yes po.
as it takes up most, if not all, then the image is drawn immediately to your subject. Wala nang iba pa. So, dapat nakafocus lang kayo sa isang tao at huwag kayong lumandi sa marami, ha? So, ganun lang din sa fill the frame. Focus lang tayo sa isa. Okay,
Hugot.
next. Hugot. Ayan. So, fill the frame, of course. This shot took in Cebu also. So, finil the frame ko lang din kasi siya lang yung focus ko dito. Pasensya na sa mga messy hair, no? Hindi ko na in-edit kasi ang dami. Okay na yan sa akin. So, as long as hindi ako distracted, goods na ako doon. Hindi po ako broken, Yves. I have my partner in life dito sa ating session, no? Nakikinig lang siya. Ako, patay tayo dyan. So, fill the frame with your subject. Focus lang kayo sa kanya. Ito din, fill the frame. Siya lang talaga at wala nang iba dyan sa image na yan. Pinocus ko lang lahat sa kanya. Right? So, this is Lois, taken from last year nung wala pang COVID. Kasama ko si PJ neto during this shoot. So, that's how we fill the frame. So, dito naman, nag-fill the frame ako, of course. This is Cristel. Shoot din namin ni PJ sa Cavite. This is a bathtub. Kung nakikita nyo sa background niya, we have the sunset. So, ang ganda ng flares na binigay niya sa lens ko. I'm using an 85mm lens dito. Sobrang ganda ng compression ng 85mm lens, no? So, if you're planning to buy lens and all, 85mm, put that on your list.
Yes, sir.
Yun, bibili na yan si Gia, no? So, finil the frame ko siya, of course. Basic lang kasi gusto ko lang siya lang yun nandyan sa image niyan. Hindi nakita yung bathtub, o yung kamay niya, or yung paa niya, ganyan. So, ganun siya kaganda when it comes to filling the frame. Right? Ito din, filling the frame din ito. Sinot ko ito netong December of last year lang. So, si Jen Lumataw ito, if you're familiar with her, nilublob namin siya sa tubig, sa aquarium ng may mga isda. Pinuno ko lang yung image niya ng mukha niya. Kasi ang important subject para sa akin in this photo is yung eyes niya. Right? As the stories say na nakalubog yung kanyang kalahati ng mukha sa tubig. Right? Paano nyo nilagyan ng ilaw yan, Sir Adam? Okay, paano nga ba nilagyan ng ilaw? Sa aquarium, sa gilid ng aquarium, say for example, no, annotate ko lang. So ito aquarium. Ganyan. Ay, sorry. So dito naglagay kami ng ilaw dito. Ng red na ilaw dito. Kahit LED light lang kasi since tubig 'yan, since tubig ito, tubig. Yung ilaw na red na nandito sa gilid, magre-reflect siya dito sa tubig. So ganun namin siya ginawa ni PJ. Yan. Okay? Clear po? Salamat. Right, next is what we call another composition tip. But what questions do we have in filling the frame? I think napaka-easy to understand yung filling the frame, no? Alright, I think walang question.
Yes,
so in this image, can anyone tell me what the story behind is in this image, or what can you tell a story in the photo? Silhouette. Ayan,
Sunset.
Sunset. Okay. Ano pa? Hindi nyo alam na nagagawa nyo na pala ito na composition tip, and mayroon palang ganitong composition. Alright, so this photo I took nung naligo kami sa Zambales. What I did is, of course, mahilig kasi ako dumapa, pero iniwasan ko na mabasa ako ng waves. So, tiniming ko lang na yung waves palapit sa akin until i-capture ko na siya. So, this photo is what we call the figure to the ground. So, any volunteers to read our definition of figure to ground composition? Can anyone volunteer, or should I volunteer?
Kaya ko na lang po ulit.
Sige po, state your name and then say it. Read.
Dominica po ulit. Figure to the ground describes the contrast between the foreground and the background. When objects are separated and clearly visible, it is easier for the viewer to comprehend the scene.
Ayan. So this guys, thank you, no, Dominica. This guys, for figure to the ground, you have to make a statement na it's easy for your viewers to comprehend what's in the scene, kung ano yung nasa kapaligiran nila, ano yung nakikita nila. Right? So dito, sinabi na there should be contrast between the foreground, which is yung, kapag sinabi nating foreground, ito yung pinakamalapit sa view natin, which is ito, sa baba. This is the closest to our eyes. And then we have what we call the background, kung ano yung nasa likod natin. And we have our midground. Right? So dito, what I focused on this is hindi yung nasa likod, hindi rin yung mga tao nandyan, hindi rin yung nandito sa foreground ko. But what I focused is yung waves dito sa gitna. Right? Kasi ang statement ko dito is I want to make sure na ang story ko behind on this, kahit naman sabihin natin na nasa dagat, I just want to make sure na nakafocus ako sa waves dahil yung yung hampas ng alon ang gusto ko makunan ng story with all the people from behind na they are enjoying the sunset and the beach dahil sa waves na nangyayari sa kaganapan. So in making that statement, you should always make it clear and visible for your viewers to comprehend yung scene, right? So eto, papakita ko sa inyo yung foreground as we have indicated in the arrow. Ito yung aking focus, yung middle ground ko. And we have the background, yung mga taong nag-swimming, sunlight, clouds, and all. So napakaganda, parang ang nostalgic. Siguro ibebenta ko yung photo na to. Thanks for Johan, no, for helping me out. Alright, so dito naman, an example of figure to the ground kasi there's a contrast between my foreground, my subject, and yung background ko. So I'm creating a clear statement that my subject is andun siya sa isang open area. This is also a shot I took in Bulacan with Shem. So ayun, it's a clear statement that she's there in the middle and then she's in an empty field or grassy field, whatever. Simple lang siya talaga. Hindi natin siya kailangan i-complicate, guys, kasi if we make things complicated, tayo lang din yung mahihirapan at mako-confuse. So let's stick to the basics. Let's stick to the most simple parts or most simple things we see. No, kung gusto niyo i-complicate, okay lang 'yan, walang problema diyan. But make sure lang na it's easy for people to comprehend din and to understand your photo. Yeah. So dito naman, this is Sheen. I have a contrast between my foreground and my background too. So the reason bakit ko siya sinali because this is foregrounding. So for foregrounding, figure to ground, as you can see, I have here yung contrast ko, yung foreground ko is yung mga flowers na ito na malapit sa akin. And then I'm making a statement na you see Sheen, she is just, sitting there and trying to play with all these whatever grasses or kung ano man to. And then in the middle of whatever, kasi it's so bokeh, right? Bokeh-licious. So that's a clear statement of my figure to the ground. So ito, sorry din no, medyo sorry quality. Andiyan pa naman si Jason. No? So dito, shot I took in a wedding. This is figure to ground too because I have a contrast between the foreground, the subject, and yung background niya kung saan nagpe-preps pa lang kami dito during that time. So yeah. So ito din, this is a figure to the ground composition kasi we have our foreground here, we have our middle ground, and we have our background. So it's clearly creating a statement that this is in a highway. Kinuha siya sa highway habang naka-stop sign or whatever people are crossing. This is from Ronald Villanera, by the way. No? Shinare niya din sa akin for this workshop. All right. So next, so what questions do we have for figure to ground or for grounding before I move on to the next? May questions tayo. I think wala tayong questions, no? So, kung walang questions, we have what we call patterns and repetition. So dito sa patterns and repetition, in this photo, what do you think is a pattern and repetition dito?
Yung mata po ng panda.
Mata ng panda, alin pa?
Color ng panda.
Yung color ng panda. All right. So this is a photo I took also when we were in Sky Ranch ng girlfriend ko na gumala kami, no? So to define patterns and repetition, kasi mabilis lang talaga siya intindihin at pag nakita ng mata, nakikita mo agad yung format and pattern eh. So it refers to one subject or shape being repeated. It's a combination of elements or shapes repeated in a recurring and regular arrangement. So we also have a rhythm in terms of patterns and repetition kasi it's a both combination of elements repeated but with variations. So let me share to you some examples ng patterns ha kasi napakaganda talaga nito. And in patterns, alam ko familiar kayo dito. This is actually mostly applied no in terms of tawag dyan, architectural photography. Makikita nyo yung mga patterns na kagaya nito. Ayan. So we have beautiful patterns. Yan, di ba? So ngayon, since your eyes are open and patterns and how to properly compose patterns too, is you have to make sure lang na you apply also yung mga rule of thirds or leading lines kasi you cannot just limit yourself to one composition in a photo eh. You can actually incorporate all or anything or kahit gaano karami pa yan. Right? So kagaya nito, may proper rule of thirds tayo dito. Ito may lines tayo dito, may diagonal tayo, may spirals tayo, ito may diagonals tayo, but there's still the patterns in a photo. So what's more interesting in terms of patterns is whenever you break the pattern na. Kasi whenever you break the pattern, it creates more drama, right? So let me share with you something saglit ha. Okay, ito. These are broken patterns in photography po. Napakaganda din ito. It creates tension talaga sa iyong photo. Kagaya nito, as you can see, all the apples there are green and then merong isa na red. So in food photography or in your product shoot, you can actually apply this to pag mga same colors and then the pattern is broken because may isa dyan na niligaw or whatever, right? Ganda nun. Kagaya nito, yung mga puno na nabali, ito yung mga itlog, may kulay. Ito nakatingin lahat sa harap siya naman ay nakatingin sa likod. So mga ganong bagay. So those are patterns that are broken and adds drama immediately to your photo. So those are the good things. Now, so you can actually search that too in Google, right? So for now, what questions do we have here? Right, so napakaganda po. Yes po, totoo. So this is again a picture from Ronald Villanueva, no credits to him. This is in Tasmania. I think this is on Australia. So we can see may mga leading lines, pero there's patterns too. Ang pattern na nakikita nyo dito is what?
Pagka,
Hagdanan.
po.
Right? Yung hagdanan lang. Simple lang siya. Hagdanan yung patterns natin dito. Hindi natin kailangan i-complicate. Symmetry. Yes, we also have symmetry here. Yan, napakaganda. No, next, when I was starting on photography, I have this guy, Jerrell, na pina-follow ko sa Instagram. Napakagaling niya mag-capture ng patterns talaga. So if you can look him on Instagram, makikita niyo yung Instagram niya, sobrang ganda. Puro patterns. Right, ito shot niya to aerial, ito sa kanya din to. Ito mga patterns natin. Right? So, mostly architectural siya in terms of photography. Right? So ito, dito sa BGC from J. Mendiola again, kilala niyo si J. Mendiola. What do you think is our pattern right here?
building.
Yung building. So alin yung broken pattern naman natin?
3 yata.
No.
Yan, yung
Yung
puno.
puno
Kasi
po.
as you can see, napaka-bluish lahat ng surrounding natin, no? Yung tones ng building naging blue and then na-break yung pattern because of the tree. Yung puno, yung tree, no? So, you can apply that, you can use that, and you can always learn to incorporate that with all your artworks and creativity. All right, so next, this is a photo from Eldred Neil Celesta, a friend of mine, a church friend from Iloilo. So this actually won, I think last year, no, in Fuji's competition, grand champion po across the entire country for, I believe there are at least 4,000 participants. Faye, if you're there, Faye, ilang participants in Faye from last year? Are you here, Miss Faye? I will ask si Faye sa atin. Basta yun, this won the grand champion from last year. Friend ko siya, so shinare niyo din sa akin to. So grabe, 'di ba? Napakagaling, wow, just wow. So kung ikaw kung sumali mananalo talaga to. So these are broken glasses, no? And then pinasok niya yung subject niya dyan na sumilip lang. Did he use a broken glass for this shot? Actually, Faith, I'm not sure kung broken glass talaga yung ginamit niya or I think sa na to. Siguro kasi ang rules ng Fuji during this time is street photography. So kailangan you have to go out to the streets and capture images na papasok sa kanilang theme for that year. So since street photography yung theme nila, this was captured I believe along the sa streets lang and then may basag na whatever window and then sumilip sa ganyan. So props to Eldred Nel, no? You can also follow him on Instagram. Right? So this won Fuji Grand Champion across the entire country with over 2,000 participants or 4K ata. So next is what we call ito rin, flat lay. I took this shot from for Shattered Dreams too. So we have patterns here, no? Simpleng patterns lang. Flat lay lang. And then ito, kinuha ko sa Google. So broken pattern from all the pinks or reds. Then we have a yellow in the middle. or in the middle of them. Yan. So, what questions do we have before I move on to my next and perhaps the last composition tip that I'd like to share?
Sai, ikaw kumain ng ice?
Yes po, matigas na yung ice.
Oh, what the fuck?
Oh, ito. Okay lang yan.
Hindi ako naka-mute.
O, ayan na, minute na kita.
Sorry.
So, the meeting is ending in 10 minutes, no? So,
Bilis.
let's continue kasi this could be the last. Right? So, this is what we call symmetry. So, eto, I took this shot in Ortigas nung sinundo ko yung girlfriend ko. The story behind this is, sa Ortigas kasi siya nag-work, kinuha ko to using a cellphone on a wide angle setting. And then sabi ko, napakaganda ng building na to. So, kunan ko nga. So, yun. Symmetry. Cellphone shot lang to. So, again, our shots are not limited only to DSLR cameras. Composition is also not limited only to DSLR cameras. Also, the composition tips here that I'm sharing with you does not also limit to photos only, but it can also be applied to videos po. Especially sa video, nakikreate talaga siya napakagandang feeling. And yung alam mo yun, yung parang you are also in the film, ganon. So for symmetry, no, the quality of an object to be split apart into two different parts by an axis with both being identical. So it's more than of a mathematical definition kung papakinggan natin. But considering that as a composition, you do not need exact symmetry in order to achieve noticeable effects. So hindi nyo kailangan yung talagang sobrang mathematical na composition, no, in terms of your symmetry para mapansin lang yung effects. But this one right here is also an example na it doesn't need to be complicated in terms of symmetry as long as we have those lines dividing the image. No, ito kasi yung symmetry ko dito din sa gitna. So it doesn't need to be really, really complicated talaga. Sorry po, naglalaba po kasi ako habang nakikinig. Di po napansin. Okay lang yan, Jom. Pwede nyo pong labhan yung mga damit ni namin. So, yan. So, this one is I took in Tagaytay, Sky Ranch. Ito din, Sky Ranch Tagaytay. And also this one, for my symmetry, yung mga kaguluhan ng linya dyan, it doesn't have to be very complicated talaga. As long as there are lines present and there's a dividing line on your image being identical to an axis, then that's completely fine po. Right? So, yun yung symmetry po. And this one also, we have a symmetry right here in the middle. Ito, this is from Eldred Noel Solesta, yung nanalo ng Fuji from last year. Yung pinakita ko kanina, yung broken glass. This is his photo too. Winning shot, no? Napaka-winning shot, right? We have symmetry right here in the middle. Yan. So, galing. But, pumupuri tayo ng tao, guys, no? It's good. But you have to know that you can also do this. You have to believe that you can also do that, right? Kayang-kaya nyo yan. By the end of this session for composition, kasi tomorrow we'll be talking a different topic, no? Yan, kayang-kaya nyo to. I believe and I have no doubts that you guys can do this. Napaka-amazing nyo eh. Kaya na talaga to. Right, so yun. Ito yung symmetry natin, no? Yung gitna. Yan, isang straight line na yan. So, among this all the presentations I have, what questions do you have po? Ang galing na model ko, sikat yan sa si Ana. So, may ng kamay. So, what questions do you have before we end our session for today? I'll give you 1 minute sa mga gusto magtanong before I wrap things up and take screenshots para sa ating documentation. All right, I think I'm seeing a question right there. No, wait lang ah. Wait lang, folks. Saan ang Zoom ko? Ayan. I have 5 chats. Do you have any pictures wherein you break the rules of composition? Is it true po, pag product dapat plain and white and black and black? Anong difference between leading lines and symmetry? Sana all may DSLR. Okay, isa-isahin natin. Do you have any pictures wherein you break the rules of composition? Yes, Faith. Napakadami kong photos in terms of breaking the rules for composition. Later, I'll send that sa GC, yung mga pagbe-break ko ng rules, no? Kasi let us be reminded that we should not limit ourselves only to the guides or yung sa mga ang tawag dito. Hindi natin kailangan i-limit yung sarili natin sa composition, sa mga bagay na natututunan natin ngayon. Kasi if we limit ourselves in doing that, then we are missing the fun part. So later, when I wrap things up, I'll tell more of that. So is it true po, pag product dapat plain yung background na black and white? No po. Depende po yun kung ano po yung gusto ng client niyo po. Kung plain white, then plain white. Kung black, then black. So, but do not limit it all to black and white lang. Kasi subjective pa din to. So, anong difference between leading lines and symmetry? So, yung leading lines, Yana, ito yung lines na nagtuturo sa atin doon sa subject natin. So, ginaguide yung mata natin into a direction kung saan dapat yung focus ng mata natin. While symmetry, it's a dividing line sa photo, no, na pinag-usapan natin dito na an axis being identical. So ito lang yung kumbaga hindi siya talagang napaka noticeable in terms of your of symmetry, but as long as you have your photo being composed into various lines and all of that, so I think that would help us in identifying symmetry in the photo. Okay? So, asan pa yung mga chat dito? I have 3 minutes remaining pa. Wait lang, hindi ko ma-hover over. And Yana, I hope I was able to answer your question. No? So, ano po yung madalas yung gamitin na composition for portraits and weddings po, sir? Alright, to answer this question, rule of thirds, foregrounding, tapos low angle shots, leading lines pinaka nagagamit ko, especially kasi ang ano ko talaga, ang papel ko in terms of yung sa shoot namin is establishing din ako eh. So pag sinabi nating establishing, ako yung nag-shoot ng mga buildings, hotel, simbahan, kung ano yung location kumbaga. So ang gamit na gamit doon para sa akin is yung rule of thirds talaga. So difference between diagonal and leading lines. Yung diagonal, this serves also as a leading line, but it only creates attention doon directly to your subject. So yung leading lines again, the lines that are present in the photo are all leading to your subject. So aside sa bokeh effect, ano po kaya ang maganda sa portrait? Ayan. So aside sa bokeh effect, no, actually Ian or Maris, I have a separate workshop for portraits. So our session doesn't end only here kasi I'm gonna talk about more on portrait. So aside sa bokeh effect, to answer your question, ang maganda sa portrait is to focus on the eyes po. Yun lang. Focus lang talaga sa mata.
Nice.
So I'll teach you more of that in my workshop for portraits, but that might happen 2 weeks from now. Kasi kailangan ko din ng break. Char. So yun lang, no? So, to sum it all up, no, kasi 2 minutes na lang to. So, remember that composition is important. You have to break the rules, guys. Do not limit yourself kasi if you limit yourself to the rules, then you are missing the fun part. Hindi nyo napapalabas yung pagiging creative nyo. Hindi nyo napapalabas yung sarili ng expression. Right? So, you have to break the rules. So, be creative as much as possible. Whatever that is, then do it. Do not just stick onto the rules. Huwag kayo mag-rely lang doon. These are guidelines, but it doesn't mean na kailangan yung mag-dwell lang doon sa rules or sa composition guidelines. You have to shoot in your own way. Be creative. Create your own style kasi that's gonna help you in ang tawag dito, in having your own distinction. So change your perspective kapag hindi nyo nakita o naunawaan or nagustuhan yung angle nyo doon. And then always remember that it's photographer versus the viewer. So yun, kung ano yung nakikita mo versus what your viewers can see. Always remember na napakalaking bagay nun na maitutulong sa iyo ng ating ng composition tips, right? So for now, guys, I think that's all lang for our composition tips. And I thank you again, everyone, for attending today's session. So what
Thank
questions
you.
do we have po for today? Kasi 30 seconds na lang to. May questions ba tayo, guys, for today?
Not so far, sir.
What questions
Thank
do
you
we
po.
have so far po? Wala. So kung wala na, yun lang po for today. Thank you so much, everyone.